Good afternoon. So, not uploaded in a little bit of time, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things that I've sort of been reflecting on. And I think the overarching reason, and this is a really good underlying, somebody's upstairs in the kitchen, but it's okay because this is one of the reasons for the video today, is it's not waiting until things are perfect to basically do whatever it is. I have been someone who, I'd say I've definitely always tried to get things as best as I can, I think it's pretty normal to do that. It's something that was emphasized a lot when I was growing up, and I think sometimes I've let that get to me a little bit in terms of when I've got something that I'm working towards and there's an ideal outcome, then I can sometimes put off like having fun in the moment, relaxing, taking downtime in order to work too much, basically. And basically I get burnt out. I get tired. I get moody. I isolate. Really just not very nice headspace as well. That's always been something that I've struggled with. And when I've really boiled it back, it's all because I've not wanted things to be as they are. I want things to be as I want them to be. I'm wanting them to be perfect. And I was having a conversation with a really good friend today, and she's in a situation where she really dislikes a job. It's just draining all of the life out of her. It's making her feel overwhelmed. She doesn't have motivation to train, to do the small things that are really, really important in making you have time for yourself and just generally feeling like you're doing more than just being at work, coming home, being at work, coming home, because nobody wants to live like that. And as we were talking, we were just playing around with stuff, and something come to my head, and it was like, sometimes when you're trying to build a business, or you want your life to look different from how it is now, you can, and again speaking from experiences, you can go from seeing your life how it is now to seeing what you want your life to be like when you retire, and kind of thinking how do I bridge that gap, rather than thinking about, well, what would happen if I could earn the same amount of money or a little bit more money, but only working 75% or 50% of the hours that I work now. Because I can guarantee, if somebody is unhappy with anything, but let's just say you're in a job that you don't like, and your employer came to you and said, I'm going to pay you 20% more, and you only have to come in for half the time, but you still get that 20% extra. So if you think about that, that's a completely different life, only having to come in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but then you actually get paid for an extra day. So it's you're getting paid for 6 days a week, but you're only working 2 or 3 days a week. Just by changing some of the metrics, I do genuinely believe that would make a very, very, very big impact to your life. So I was like, why don't you try and think about doing something like that? Rather than coming up with a business idea that's going to let you retire, why don't you come up with a business idea that's going to allow you to work towards that? Because that's a very, very big change. And I think that, we just talked about a few ideas and the sort of stuff that I'm doing, and the reasons am why I'm making content, the reasons why I talk about the topics that I talk about, and even like the nature of the way that I do it. Like I've got some stuff that's planned, like my series that I do that's specifically geared towards like X, Y, and Z. They're planned out, they're mapped out, the content's structured, and I'm not reading from a script, but I've got some notes in key blocks so that there's an order to it. And then on the other side of the stuff, I've just got stuff like this where I'm just spitballing, freewheeling, and being very in the moment and going with that flow. It's because I know that there's some stuff that people need to learn in a structured sort of way, and there's also times where I just want to get things off my head and explore ideas and see where things end up in more of a generalized kind of theme. And that's because I'm building my own thing, so I get to build it in the way that I feel is best for me, and also the best for the end result, which is people learning, people experiencing, and people being exposed to new types of conversations. So I just feel like it's good to do both for a multitude of reasons, and I think that can be applied in terms of building, your way out of a situation. So like I've got a friend who he's like trying to date. He's trying to like push his way into the dating scene a little bit, and he kind of got fixated on this one chick. And it took him a long time to be able to like introduce himself, say hi, over a course of a few interactions, get around to asking for a number and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, long story short, she wasn't particularly interested. But I said to him like, it sucks. It's not fun when you get like rejected in that sort of way. I was like, but the main thing that you need to take from it is that you have now done. You've got proof that doing something that will get you to where you want to be eventually isn't going to kill you. Like you've taken a chance, you've gone out on the ledge, you didn't wait for things to be perfect, you made the opportunity, you pushed for something, obviously in a very kind and well-intended way, and you didn't get what you want, but you've got proof of the fact that you can have a conversation. You can come up with questions and ideas and things to talk about to get a conversation flowing. And then when you feel like things are going well enough, you can take that opportunity by asking for the number. And yeah, it didn't go the way you wanted, but now you've done it, and it's like once you've done something for the first time, you've got a proof of concept. Like it might have not worked, but you know that there is something there which you can make work. And I think that whole waiting for things to be perfect mentality is you don't get into that groove of let me try something and see what happens. Because when you embrace that let me try something and see what happens, you then have something to work on. You can tweak it, you can fine tune it, you can change this part, you can swap it around, you can do it backwards. But when all you ever do is come up with ideas and plan and think and dream, like you never actually have something tangible which you can improve, And that's like one of the reasons why for a very, very, very long time, when I was making content, I would just open my phone up, go onto TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, talk about something for like a minute, upload it, and then I was done. I never did any long form, structured, planned out type of content, because back then I was in a place where I would just plan and plan and plan and plan until the fucking cows came home, and I would never actually do something in terms of like tangible. I'd never record something. So I was like, right, well, I'm just going to record one thing every day for a whole year. And I did. I did it probably about 16 to 18 months. Every single day, pretty much without failure. I think maybe I missed a few days when I was like ill or something like that. But I would just find something to talk about that I could explain or put my own spin on, or see something and think of why would that be interesting to me and talk about that. And that just gave me that practice. It gave me exposure. It gave me experience. It gave me that opportunity to film a video and think, oh, do you know what? That was a bit shit, but I still did it. And then I reflected on why I thought it was shit, improved that or thought about it, and then made a little tweak. And now it's to the point where, if anything, I've kind of gone the other way in terms of I can talk about things in a very grand scale, but I'm struggling to squeeze it down into something that's concise, which is where the content that's all mapped out and figured out beforehand came from. So you see how what I'm trying to get to here is painting a picture of how I've gone from being somebody that really struggled with the idea of things being perfect and trying to plan it, and so that it was like as good as it could be. I went through that arc of that's not going to happen, let's just do something and never plan it, to now I'm in the middle of actually I do like filming those videos that don't have too much planning, they don't have too much structure, because it allows me to weave something together that feels very natural, feels very organic. And I also enjoy that process of like unscripted kind of conversation, because it actually feels like very much one-sided, but it feels like a conversation. So I've experienced that, but now I know the value of doing both. I do think that there are times and places where you need to wait for opportunities to be right. You need to have the ideal conditions. You want to have things set out beforehand so you know what you're looking for, what to avoid, all that sort of stuff. I think in any situation it's very, very good to have that. But then there are situations when you just need to fucking go, you know? Like, don't think about it, don't overplan it, just say yes to the opportunity and figure it out as you go. And the art form is being able to feel what situation would be ideal for either which way of leaning into like planning or just, you know, free flowing, go with the flow kind of energy. And I think you can look at yourself as somebody that, obviously, if you're watching this video, then you are probably going to be the type of person that overthinks a little bit or overplans or is really cautious, doesn't like to make mistakes, you know, gets paralysed by too many choices. So you feel as though if you can narrow it down and, you know, make a spreadsheet of pros and cons, and this has got the higher likelihood and this has got the lower likelihood, and how can we steer things into that direction? That's all well and good. It's fantastic. But sometimes, you know, what was that? There's a saying that Mike Tyson said is everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, which is like very applicable to life, because, you know, you can have the most perfectly laid out plan and, you know, we're going to go for a beautiful picnic and we're going to make the sandwiches so beautiful and we'll get a lovely blanket and we've got the perfect little scenery, and then it rains and it's absolutely fucking howling with rain. The wind is so bad that you can't even get out of the car, and that's when you need to then be able to pivot and think, right, well, we'll just eat the food in the car and put our favourite music on, rather than being upset that the plan didn't work. And I think that's where the secret sauce is planning as well as you can, because it's important, but then being able to be flexible and adaptive enough to go with what you've got in the time. And that's something that I've been playing around with a lot in terms of like content creation and work, because obviously, like when I'm at work, from leaving my house, my place, it's not my house, when I leave mine to coming back, realistically it's like 11 and a half hours, and that's not including, you know, half an hour to an hour before I leave for work, you know, organising my day, hydrating, toilet, shower, whatever I need to do, have a quick stretch. It's not including when I have to meal prep every 4 or 5 days, going shopping for the meal prep, exercising, you know, mobility stuff, recovery stuff in terms of like sauna. That's not including planning my content, filming the content, uploading, editing the content, all of that sort of stuff. So like in what I'm trying to get at here is like I structure my week, I plan it out. I have a rough idea of like, okay, so I'm working, maybe 9 o'clock while 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna try and put in a little bit of something before work. So that means I need to wake up at like 7, and then maybe try and get something in here because I need to be in bed asleep while 11 o'clock at 11 o'clock because I need to be up. So that's what I'm saying in terms of like I structure my week like that. But then sometimes work will run over, or I have a really really stressful day at work. Something will come up that I need to deal with, and there's only so much energy that I've got, and I'm very aware of not pushing myself too much all the time. So that then becomes a thing of like, right, well, I didn't get the amount of work that I wanted to do today, so I'll try and do it tomorrow or the day after, or actually I'll push it until 4 days time because I've got a day off and I've left some time. So it's just about being flexible, you know? Don't try and get everything perfect before you've even got some evidence of, do I like doing this? Do I want to do this? And I think that getting that evidence to start with, like just trying something, it's like, I always found it really interesting that people went to university to study a degree in something that they'd never done for a day. It's like, people will go and, I don't know, become qualified personal trainers when they've never actually stuck to a workout routine themselves. It's like, well, do you know if you're even, like, the idea of going and like getting somebody else to do exercise in a routine kind of way is kind of boring, it's a special kind of person that's needed to be a coach or a PT that can find the fun in that kind of mundane type of stuff. And then you've got people going to uni to do like degrees in nutrition, and they've never actually read like a fucking nutrition label. It's like, I just find it so interesting that people can commit to these long-term, you can go and get a career or a job in this industry and you might have never fucking stepped foot in that industry. And it's just, people just go on what they think is going to be the right option. This seems to work out well, or that looks like it's going to make enough money, or that person looks like they're attractive, so I'll go on a date with them. And it's like, you've never actually had a conversation with them. Online dating's weird. University, how you pick what you want to do is strange. And I just feel like everything would work a lot better if you had a little bit of experience to base your decision on. Even something like, I know that I can sit and film these kind of videos that are very, all over the place, but that's just what these kind of videos are like. I like to explore different topics and weave it all in and out. It's kind of how my mind works, and I'm leaning into it. Like, I know that I can sit and do one of these videos. Probably I could do 2 of these a day and not feel fatigued. Like, I just really enjoy this kind of energy, this kind of energy giving. For me, giving out this kind of energy doesn't feel like giving energy. Whereas sitting down and organising like a series of videos and understanding where the parts go together and the flow to the video, and take homes and specific things throughout the video that I don't want to forget, that just absolutely drains my brain so much. So I have to work harder at that one. Because if all I ever did was make content like this, then there would be it's just fucking goes round and round in circles quite a lot of the time. And just full disclaimer, like, most of this type of content that I put out, it's just me exploring ideas so that I can come back at a later time. And hopefully, it will every now and then just resonate with somebody that helps them see how 5 or 6 different areas can feed into that one bottleneck. But yeah, like trying to figure everything out in advance, or jumping into something big without having any experience or exposure to it, it just seems absolutely fucking backwards to me. Because then the thing is, you get yourself into a situation, and because of how, without getting into a bigger topic, but the way that human behavior works is we want to see things through to completion. We don't want to be seen as somebody that leaves, or like there's this weird thing about changing your mind in society, which is seen as a bad thing, or people know that you're in this kind of work or you're working towards this thing, and then all of a sudden you change your mind and it's like, oh, fucking hell, you don't stick at things long, dear. Or there's just all this negative, very easy to come by negativity towards like pivoting and changing. It's very old school mentality, whereas like in real world scenarios you have to pivot and change your mind and be open to new things and be curious about stuff, or you'll just become absolutely tunnel visioned, and all you ever see is what happens inside this tiny tunnel, and there's all of this stuff going on around you which can be used to your benefit. And I think that's another thing, like when you're trying to do things in a perfect way, you can get very like rigid and firm in, this is the way that it's supposed to happen, and this is the best way, and it's only that way. And there's probably 12 other ways that you could get there twice as quick with half the effort. That's one thing I've really realised, is by relinquishing that control and like not being so scared of things going wrong, like you might accidentally bump into somebody one day that actually has got loads of experience in that world, and that can show you that path. There's been some interesting shit that goes on in this planet because people have dropped the thing that they thought was the correct way to go about it, just do something completely different, and lo and behold, we have new inventions and new products and new industries, because people don't try and do things the perfect way. I think that's a very, very good place to end. I feel that we should go on what feels good, and the only way you know what feels good is by experiencing it, rather than trying to make things work with what you think will work. We can live up here a little bit too much and try and make the right decisions when nobody actually fucking knows what the right decision is. It's just a guess based on previous experience. But just because something's worked one way before doesn't mean it's going to work that way in the future. So yeah, don't be too worried about doing things the correct way, because it's probably the correct way for other people, and everybody's fucking unique, So yeah, I think go by feel, have a little bit of experience, and play around with what you can play around with before committing. And then if you just need to make a decision, just make the fucking decision, knowing that you made the best decision for the person that you were in that moment. And you're never going to find out what would have happened other way. It's not like we can split test a day. Life would be a lot easier if you could split test an entire day. But we can't. So yeah, don't be worried about being a perfectionist.